Let me begin with an analogy, which I hope will be helpful. I want us to think about medical care. If someone had cut their finger, most of us could put a plaster on it. If someone had a headache, most of us would say, I think you could take some paracetamol, and even read the back and check there aren't any reasons you shouldn't or something. But some of you might do a first aid course, and then you will be correspondingly better placed to evaluate an injury and make appropriate suggestions and help. Our daughter trained for several years to get a degree in nursing. She's up a whole scale in her knowledge and her ability. She went on to do other studies, say in emergency response and so on, to get even more able. Then you might go the whole hog and study medicine for even longer, and then have even more on-the-job training and be even more able to help in the world of medicine. You get the picture. We can all be helpful in the medical realm to some degree. The more training, the more knowledge, the more you have, the more helpful you will be. And what level of training and knowledge you aim for depends what you're planning on being within the medical world. Now look, it's not a precise comparison, okay? But I think there are parallels with training for Christian ministry. We can all do bits of Christian ministry. You're all able in lots of ways already, and so are lots of the people around you in church life. You can open the Bible with people. You can read the Bible and say, isn't that great? Isn't Jesus good? And the person is helped and encouraged. Someone can say, I'm troubled with this issue, and you can give some advice to them. You are pastoring people. You're counseling people in an informal, low-key way, but that's what you're doing. And we can all do that. But then you could do a how to study the Bible, how to lead a Bible study type training course and be better at that. And so on and so on. The more training you get, the more helpful you can be. And the more knowledge and training you might want to aim at will depend on what it is you're planning on doing. You can also distinguish with that analogy of types of knowledge, because some are more practical, in the medical world. How do you apply a bandage well to a wound? You can learn how to do that. You've been shown how to do that well. But other knowledge is more theoretical. How does blood clotting work? How do wounds heal? And you might then know a lot of the theory, as it were, behind the practice. Well, we want to grow in practical skills like how to lead a good Bible study, for example. But the more we're going to do in ministry, the more we're going to want to know the theory behind it. What's our doctrine of Scripture? How do we think God speaks today? The more you do of that theoretical, as it were, the less it feels like it's immediately relevant. Tell me how to lead a Bible study. Tell me how to do evangelism. Tell me how to preach a sermon. It feels like I can take that and do it tomorrow. The more theoretical it is, the more it becomes the kind of the background or the foundation, as it were, to what we're doing. But, medical analogy, I take it you want a doctor who knows how blood clots, and therefore what might be going wrong in your case, and so on. So, as those considering future ministry of some sort, you need to think about training. I hope that analogy encourages you to think, I need training. I should have training of some sort. And then to realize there are different levels and types of training, and what you aim at will depend on what it is you think your role might be. Secondly, what should training cover? I want to suggest it should cover three broad areas. Knowledge. There is stuff about God you don't know. Stuff about his plan of salvation. Stuff about how the Bible's put together. Stuff about people. Stuff about church history. Things Christians have thought before us that is good for us to know and forms the foundation of what we'll teach others. There are skills. Skills in reading the Bible well, interpreting it well, not getting it wrong. Skills in teaching it well in different ways. Skills in discipling people, helping people in their walk with God, in counseling people well, in leading groups of people, churches, in doing evangelism and apologetics. And then there's character. We've already mentioned ministry flows out of who we are. Training is not just about more information in my head and more sort of ability with my hands, as it were, but formation of us as people, our hearts. And those areas, I think, are distinguishable but connected. I might be studying church history. I might be studying doctrine. And it's about knowledge, but that knowledge about God should shape my heart and what I think of him and how I bow before him. I might think about how I grow in counseling skills and I'm learning to listen well to people, but as I do so, that might make me reflect on my love for people. So training, I think, should include those three elements: knowledge, skills, and character, distinguishable, but they should be combined in some way. Lastly, I want to say there's a whole wide variety of ways you can get training, and it's aimed often at different levels, and there are different pros and cons, different ways in which it's delivered. And this isn't even all of them. You can do full-time residential training so that you're studying with a cohort of others, rubbing shoulders with them all the time, in lectures and seminars with them, and so on. You can do that type of training, but not residential, part-time, where you sort of travel in and out. You can do distance learning, where you do more study on your own. Often distance learning involves being in a cohort, but you interact online. You get together for study days every couple of months, or residentials occasionally during the year. Others have learning groups, but you're using material produced from elsewhere, like watching a lecture together. Others have intensives where you meet together for a week of input and then go away and do more reading and writing and stuff by yourself. I mean, we should thank God there are lots of different options like that around. Far more good options, actually, than when I was looking at training. It's worth considering a couple of things with regard to those. Yourself, first of all. Your learning style. Can you learn by yourself well? Can you just sit there and read? Or are you better being taught by somebody else? Are you better off discussing with people and throwing things around, or reflecting on your own? How academic are you, for want of a better word? I don't particularly like it, but what kind of depth do you want to think about things at? What is your situation? How much time do you have? Are you working with the church already and you've got a bit of time in the edges of the week, as it were, a day a week or something? Or can you study full time? So things about yourself and your situation. And then things about the potential course you might study. What is being covered? What depth is it aimed at? What level? Who's teaching you? What are the practicalities? There's always a mix of breadth and depth in courses. And that'll depend a little bit on how old you are and what you've done already as to what you want to aim for. Broadly speaking, you want to do something that is going to cover all the bases, biblical studies, doctrine, sort of how to do different sorts of word ministry, some church history, hopefully, and so on. Some courses are much more, as it were, narrow and focused on, say, how to preach or some other area of doctrine. So there's you, how you tick, what you know already, and there's the course and how it fits together. It's worth asking others what they've done, how they've trained. My one caveat on that is, in most cases, there are some minor exceptions, but most people will always recommend the way they trained, because they benefited from it, which is great. And so they feel warmly about it. That's absolutely fine. That's great. I'll happily tell you how I trained, and I'll speak warmly about it. So just factor that in. Most people will always sell you what they've had. Ask what was good about it. Ask what might not have been so good about it. Let me just finish with this. Some of you will probably love the idea of training. Your question is, how can I get as much as I possibly can? And I just want to remind you, you're training for the sake of being helpful to other people, not for the sake of training. Some of you don't like the idea of training, and you want to ask, what's the least I can get away with? And I understand that, and I want to remind you, you're training for the sake of being helpful to people, so get as much as you can. Thank you.